Hello and welcome to this episode of Tech Talks with Matt. I'm Matt Hennessy from Micro Focus, and I'm delighted today to be joined by Ravi and Ross from Zensar. Hello, Ravi, and hello, Ross.
Hello, Matt. Hello, Matt. Good to be here.
Thank you very much for joining us. What makes these episodes really rich is talking to experts like yourself. So thank you very much for joining us. I'm going to kick things straight off, and I'm really pleased that you're going to be able to talk to us about microservices, transformation in monoliths, and a wide range of topics. So, you know, we all know that big organizations, and let's call them monoliths, want to be more agile. But they don't. It seems more problematic for large organizations. So how do large organizations become more, I guess, small in that sense when it comes to agility?
Yeah, I can pick that up. See, monoliths are rightly considered, Matt, to be the biggest roadblocker to the business growth and also innovation, because they limit your ability to engineer timely technology solutions. And most of these monoliths are actually born and brought up in that enterprise over last 3 to 4 decades, and they are monoliths for a reason. They are there for a reason. It is not just easy to replace them with a brand new SaaS solution straight away, because most of this custom logic is built within. But now what is happening is these enterprises are now able to get around these challenges very easily, I must say, by building composable enterprise with microservices. And what microservices is, I think most of us know, but it is basically nothing but an architectural style which structures an application as a suite of loosely coupled small services, where each of them is running its own business process and communicating using lightweight mechanisms. But what's happening in the past, where the monolith architectures are there, is that everything is contained in one big large unit, right? And when something breaks, and even the best software does break, it breaks the whole monolith. When you started out with a lean project, even if you are starting with a small one, over the course of time, this software tends to grow in complexity over time, and you keep on adding more features, workarounds, production fixes. The updates and releases becomes very slow, and that is what has happened. But with microservices, this single service that becomes complex over the time, you can rewrite just that and not the whole thing. And that's the best part. You can do an integration engineering separately. You can do front-end engineering separately, customer design nicely. So I think that's the beauty of how microservices.
Yeah, I mean, when you explain it like that, Ravi, it sounds very simple. It sounds very straightforward. And so, is there a big movement? Are these monoliths now moving quickly to microservices, or is it going to take time? Is there still some barriers, do you think?
No, there are barriers. Multiple. I'll start with maybe how people view it as just a technology change. It is in fact not a technology change alone. Most of the times we tend to get swarmed by all the technological change that is happening and doing things for the sake of doing it. But that should not be the case. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it is about customer experience, customer journeys, and making the business process change around it. So it is very important that the enterprises complement this technological drive that can be brought in by microservices properly with the people change. So, for example, what do you do with the people in ops in both business and IT? How do you take the cultural change aspect into mix? How do you take the operational change aspect? There is always that worry on these technologies changing, whether the skill need to be changed. How do I learn the skill, the training that is required, and also the agility that is required in the business mindset to tweak their processes on the go to adapt to this. If the business does not want to change the processes, no matter how much technology bandwagon you have, it is irrelevant. And I think that is
Absolutely.
where we have seen success, especially with the likes of Micro Focus, where we have delivered custom frameworks. We have built something on top of Micro Focus Enterprise Solution Suite called Legacy Analysis Suite, and transform to Micro. So we got actually a template to take a monolith and break it down, build in customer journeys, build in your integration engineering, build in front-end engineering on top, at the back of the customer journeys. and the entire thing is has given a lot of results for us, and we have helped all these lessons to actually migrate very easily.
I was just going to say, you've obviously, this is obviously something that's real and out there and people are using. So how are you finding, how long has it been in some companies, and how what's the response for microservices?
It has been there for some time, last 10 to 15 years. But what has happened is the way cloud has come in, it has actually given a jump start, because it has given a lot of these platforms at scale. The entry barriers, the cost barriers have actually come down much easily because of cloud and cloud-born platforms, cloud-native platforms. But again, it is not a silver bullet, right?
No, of course.
There are, of course, many more challenges. It does help you to isolate failures, build fault tolerance, increase scalability, but they also create a lot of challenges. For example, if your microservices grow into not just tens, but hundreds and thousands, as we have seen in the large enterprises, how do you manage so many of those microservices? How do you monitor those microservices? How do you make sure that if one is down, it is not impacting the communication mechanism? So that is where we have actually implemented service mesh as a technology, and there are multiple tools out there. I mean, that is one aspect of it. Second aspect is how do the executives see it? Executives see as a tick box for the next 1 or 2 years and say, I have replaced something, or I have moved something, and I'm done with the change. There's an end state, and I have achieved it. But modernization never has an end state. It's actually continuously evolving, process.
Of course.
So how do you build that continuously evolving engineered enterprise design is the key. There are tools out there. We always use tools like Micro Focus Enterprise Analyzer, for example. We got our custom frameworks that are coupled with it, and we always work with the architects and designers to say, even if you have achieved your so-called end state in 2 years' time, how do you then change that end state to become a continuously evolving one? How do you build an engineering model around it? It is not just a one-time analysis, one-time engineering.
And the way you implement the microservices, does that set them up for the future? Is that part of the way you engineer them at the start?
Yeah, the technology should be useful to at least help you for the next 5 to 10 years, because it keeps on changing so fast. The technologies that we use today are not there 10 years back. Even the cloud is not in the same state that we used, in the 10 years back. So I think that's the best part. How do you keep them agile in a way that you should be able to change the technologies? You should be able to not get into vendor lock-in. I think those are the keys in the way you design your enterprise. That is where I know I keep using this word, composable enterprise. How do you get to that state is the key. That's when I will actually leverage your monolith in a much better fashion without rewriting it completely, because that's just not the right way to do it.
And so, how long does it take? I mean, if we've got a CIO from one of these monoliths watching this episode, and they're thinking, well, yeah, I like this, Ravi. This is excellent. But how long does it take? What is it a relatively straightforward process? How do you convert a monolith's infrastructure or into microservices? And I know there's not one size fits all, but roughly.
No, exactly. So it depends on how big of a transformation you want to do. Keeping again the technology aside, what is the end goal that you're trying to achieve? What business unit among this monolith? Because typically these monoliths actually service multiple business units. That is how they were built. Everything was dumped into one large system. Now, how do you take that one single process, one single business unit, one single objective of a enterprise, and then redesign it? Now that determines it. Typically, anywhere between 2 to 3 years is minimum that we see, because a lot of people say, well, first I want to get out of data center and move into cloud. Movement of infrastructure is my first phase. But that's only very little part. That doesn't exactly give you the scale that you just want, for the sake of it. You should also redesign your services in line with what your new technology on the cloud offers. So how do you get your API model in? How do you get your pub sub model built in? How do you get your event driven architecture built in? So how do you decouple that tightly coupled enterprise. So that determines at least the length of it. I would say 2 to 3 years at least, because we are again not seeing big bang transformations taking place. There are no large programs happening. Everybody has now, and rightly so, moved into the scaled agile framework kind of a model where you are planning only for the next 3 to 6 months, not more than that. But these transformation at least take 8 to 10 program increments, as they call it. So that is anywhere between 2 to 2.5 years, and then you reassess your priorities.
And do you,
Matt,
do you...
to any potential CIOs looking at this podcast, the big question on their mind is going to be, well, how do we identify our agents for change and our movements for change? Because taking out a monolith is a big exercise, but how do you identify those catalysts, those systems, those applications that are ready to move or can move, or that are least risk to business? And then the second part is always, how do we mitigate that risk of movement? And that is where Ravi and team have really been able to isolate the application, not only the behavior, but also the connected eco dependencies on the ecosystems, to look at those factors so that you can build, plan, execute your transformation or your migration. Whether you want to refactor or rehost, it's up to you. But at least that gives you the building blocks and the planning to be able to execute it. And trust me, that then feeds into the culture of the enterprise. Everybody understands that in the current economic conditions, the banks, the finance houses are all looking at how do we know our customer better. They're leveraging that information to understand how can we offer more services, enterprise services to our clients. And a lot of them wanted this, and the applications or the systems that they built on just simply don't support that. So being able to understand where you are, what your business requires for the market conditions, and what your end state needs to be, really provides the blueprint for your transformational journeys. And that's what Ravi and team have been working with extensively now for the last number of years. And we don't only see that growth in the financial services and insurance services now, we're also starting to see it in government. Government is understanding to the wake that we need to service our communities better, and the systems that we have just cannot do that. And technology here is an enabler. So the art of understanding what needs to change, we can now quantify, so they can give tangible results to business to make the decisions.
Okay, yeah. So, and do you find are the differences? You obviously, Zensar is a global player. Do you see differences in different territories? How is it sort of similar in Europe as it is in South Africa? I mean, how do you see any differences there?
Exactly. So it depends where, in which stage of transformation you are in, right? So if you let's take Americas, for example, they're much ahead of the curve because they got the skills locally available. They got the cloud transformation journey is already being done, so they are already into the next wave. They have done the easy part. That sounds easy now, but it was not easy 10 years back. But they've done all the engineering transformation in majority of the enterprises. Even now, most of them are not into cloud. Most of them are not leveraging the full capacity of the cloud, but they know what that is. They know how to structure the enterprises around it. But if you come to the other parts of the world where the Microsoft Azure or AWS are still entering into those territories, setting up the local regions, there you see infra migration as the first trend. You don't see engineering as the trend that is happening. On the other side, in Americas and Europe, much advanced, they are now moving into data. So now data and ML, and how do you do data engineering at scale? Because now they want to exploit that investment that they have made and actually want to get into predictable models. We are not there yet, and in the other parts of the world, like South Africa, we don't have the scale to exploit data at that level as others are doing. So our focus right now, or what we are seeing as a trend, is more on the rehost or replace with SaaS, but not exactly on refactor or re-engineer to the extent of using cloud native. But customers are starting to slowly talk about it, and good to see the lessons on how other parts of the world are doing it, and then implement that in the likes of South Africa, for example.
Okay. Thanks, Ravi. Thinking sort of slightly more broadly now. Obviously, as a sort of a leading systems integrator, you work with a number of customers. What sort of trends are you seeing on their sort of modernization journeys? Obviously, microservices is one we want them to be looking at. What else are they saying? What are you seeing?
Yeah, so most of them also are finally investing a lot in software as a service solutions. For example, the likes of Salesforce, SAP Cloud, SAP HANA, because those are heavily invested ERPs which you already have for a long time, and you are seeing that as one trend. So replace with SaaS is definitely one large trend. As I said earlier, rehost, where you just move the infra workloads from data centers to cloud regions is the other big trend. But unfortunately, these trends are also again, some of them are having little wrong strategy. I mean, these are the lessons that we have learned, and which is why we no longer call ourselves actually system integrator. We are now calling ourselves engineering consulting organization, and it is not a branding change or something. It is because that is what we are now. We have learned from a lot of these experiences from the customers, and we have become more of a consulting organization where we are advising our customers that you should not just put 1 hour in the modernization strategy only. It is a workload specific transformation. Each workload has their own way. You have a combination of multiple hours: rehost plus refactor, rehost plus re-engineer where required. In specific layer, do you want to re-engineer only in the integration layer? Do you want to re-engineer only in the data layer? So that combination of workload-based strategy and specific modernization is something that we very effectively drive to our customer set. We have actually built something called a modernization blueprint, which combines all these. So we invest in a series of workshops, and Micro Focus has been part of some of these workshops that we have done, where we look at a specific workload in all angles, from security, networks, availability, customer journeys, future state, and then give you a very custom roadmap, like earlier that you asked how much time it takes, including that the entire roadmap plus the business case, because most of these executives also need assistance in making a case to the business, making a case to finance, to transparently say, hey, how much it is going to cost me in the future. So we look at your current TCO, we look at your future vision, and give you that entire ROI based business case with a future target architecture and a roadmap. So this is, we call it a blueprint, modernization blueprint, that is effectively utilized in most of our customers, and we are actually seeing a lot of value come out of it.
Mm. Wonderful. Yeah, I'm not sure, Ross, if this is for you or Ravi, but what are you most excited about? What's coming in, let's say, in the next quarter? What are we going to see from Zensar?
I think when we look at our data engineering, there's some really exciting tracks that are going to be coming out of the data side. We've spent a lot of time now on our transformational journeys. A lot of those journeys are now hitting a productionized state. So we're going to be starting to see the client value coming out of that, and just harnessing more of the data and the AI to start looking at future growth within our clients, and what new revenue streams we can use and we can contribute with technology for. That's what I'm really excited about for our next year's growth, because I think we've laid a solid foundation. It's now time to start articulating what those data and those AI and those analytic requirements are going to start forecasting for business, so we can put those into good use. Ravi, cool. From your side?
Yeah, so from our side, Matt, we have been working very closely with our internal technology teams. In the past, you used to see a different data practice team or a different application team or infrastructure team. What we're doing is we're bringing all of this together into one big integration engineering based platform called Velocity. So Velocity is our new engineering platform, which combines all our accelerators, integrators, automation, AIOps into one single place. So any modernization, any cloud native engineering, any data engineering related aspects, you got all those automations that we have actually built earlier for our customers, and the new models in one single platform. So which makes it very easy for our customers to jumpstart their journeys. And again, the workshops that I was talking about, the frameworks, they're all part of this big platform that we are going to take starting next year. And that's going to be my major focus, because we got a lot of these customers still stuck with a lot of monoliths. So how can we take this offering that we are building now and take it to those enterprises and drive value in the conversation and make a difference, not just from an IT perspective, but also from the business perspective and the customer journeys. So that's going to be my main focus for the next few quarters.
Excellent. Brilliant. I really feel like saying scratch the surface is a saying that's said quite a lot. I really do feel like we've only scratched the surface here. I'm conscious that, you know, we want of your time, and we want people to sort of be able to come into these episodes and get some information quickly. So are there any sort of final things you'd like the people who are tuning into these to your episode to know or to hear from Zensar?
Sure. So there are many of my colleagues who are in a very similar position, and each of us are very overwhelmed, Matt, with the amount of technological changes and advancements that are happening around us, and quite honestly, no one knows it all. So my advice and my suggestion to all my peers and colleagues is put your head down, be humble, and keep learning by practicing what you preach. Only by practice you will be able to gain that respect with your customers. That's the best way you can also make a difference to your customers in the conversations that you're having, and that will be my suggestion.
Fantastic. Wow, thank you. I think we'll unfortunately we'll have to bring it to a close, and maybe we'll do a 7-hour episode in the future on this, but we'll call it to a close now. I just want to say a huge thank you, Ravi and Ross. This is such an interesting subject, and I definitely think we'll be hearing more. So thank you very, very much for joining us, and thank you to everyone who's tuned into this episode. We'll see you on the next Tech Talks with Matt. Thank you.